Today on the 167, we talk about how our faith can interact with our purchases, with our investments. We talk about how our faith crosses over into the real world, and how do we deal with it when that divides us from other people. Welcome to the 167. Hey, welcome back to the 167.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Back here with Pastor Rick,
Yeah.
dropping that knowledge.
Hey, hopefully episode 3 was a little more enjoyable, like I was more relaxed and kind of just loose and limber and ready to roll.
That's how you are right now.
Yeah,
Episode 4, it's just going to get better.
it better and better.
All right, well, today what we're going to talk about is a little bit about the connectivity of our faith. So it feels like these days everything is connected. Like we were
Yeah.
talking earlier, I feel like I can't even buy toilet paper without it making a political statement or, causing a riot in Walmart. And so I just want to talk about like how should our faith impact the 167 with issues that seem to cross over, that seem like crossover issues where whether it be politics or purchases, like how does our faith interact with that?
Well, in our last episode, I talked about how I believe personally that everything is spiritual, right? Like, I don't have a work life and then a separate family life and then a separate worship life. And like it's all my life. It's one life that I have to live. I'm responsible to manage my entire life. So, with that in mind, everything I do should be done with God and for God. So, everything crosses over because everything relates to everything else.
So even the toilet paper that I use.
Even the toilet paper. So it's funny that you bring up toilet paper because one of our Christmas gifts from our daughter Kaylee was a yearly subscription for toilet paper.
You're kidding.
No, I am dead serious.
How do you have a toilet paper subscription?
Well, I'm not sure how it works, but we get toilet paper delivered to our house in a little box.
Is it good?
It is good. It's from a sustainable resource, bamboo. I know it sounds painful.
Just the term triple ply, like
Yeah, it's not. It isn't just like bamboo shoots. It is, I know it sounds terrible. Welcome to the podcast.
This sounds like torture.
No, so we get this toilet paper that is from a sustainable resource, bamboo, but the mission of the company behind the toilet paper is for third world countries who don't have clean running water and who don't have toilets where they can go to the bathroom and there's no sanitation. It is terrible. And so the mission is to use toilet paper sales to fund the mission project of sustainable water and sanitized places to be able to go to the bathroom. So yes, it costs a little bit more, but it's maybe worth the additional investment because it's going for a good cause. So does your faith cross over into your purchases, even toilet paper?
Even toilet paper.
Even toilet paper. So it does, yes.
Well, this week, Chris and I are starting to do the adulting now that we're getting older, and so we're doing wills, all the different stuff. And so I had just recently talked to a finance guy, and so he's taking our retirements and putting them in a fund. And he was asking me about my investments, and he was saying like, "Hey, here's the investments on the list. Like, do you have a problem with that?" And immediately I was like, I identified a couple of them. Like, I don't know if I believe in what that company does. This company over here is based in China, where right now they've got the Uyghur Muslim situation going on, and I'm going, can I even invest in something that's not connected to China right now? Am I gonna lose money if I don't? And it starts to really play with your mind about going, how exactly should my faith interact with these moments of my life?
Yeah, so when you're living your life with Christ and for Christ, then absolutely you have to think about him and what he would think of those investments, those purchases, those what you're involved in. Everything is connected in that way. And so absolutely, when you're looking at your investment portfolio, I believe that you should look and say, do I really want to be investing my money to support this industry, this company, even though in doing so, it probably is going to produce a pretty good return, but do I want to profit off of something that I don't support and believe in? So does your faith cross over? Sure does.
And what about in issues, like I said, there's a lot of issues that these days, I mean, everything feels political. Like I said, boiling toilet paper feels political. But like, there are pro-life issues that are important to Christ followers that we think are faith issues. And yet it seems like a crossover issue. If you go to a pro-life rally, that's not considered a faith issue. It's considered a political issue, And so like, how much of my time should I really be invested in things like that could be considered political? It could be considered other things.
Yeah. So here's the tension, the conflict that we have to deal with in our culture is, I believe, as a pastor, I believe everything is spiritual. And I believe that everything relates to how I live my life and how I reflect Christ. There are other people, on the other hand, who believe that everything is political. And it seems like everything is political. And if it's not, I will make it political. Right? And so my focus cannot be on what you think is political. It has to be on what I think is spiritual. So I have to look into the face of Jesus and say, okay, do you care about this issue? And if so, then I want to be a part of it, and I want to reflect you in it. If you don't care about this, if it's not something that Jesus is really passionate about or concerned about, I probably should back away from it and not get super involved in it, because then it just really does become more of a political issue and not a God issue.
I think that was so great when you said that. So I'm going to say it again. I'm going to draw that out because I think this is going to give some people freedom to talk in their relationships. Is you said it doesn't matter what other people think is political if you think that it is spiritual. And so, being able to say this is a biblical concept that I find in Scripture. It's not just I'm twisting Scripture to match my political view, but if I go, man, this is really a spiritual issue, and somebody goes, well, that's politics, you'd be like, not for me. For me, this is about following Jesus. I think that gives people language to talk to people.
And it is a fine line. You have to check your heart. You have to know your motives, and don't try to take something that's in the Bible and twist it into a political statement or movement. It might be perceived that way, and it might ultimately play out into a political arena, but that can't be the motive. The motive is, I'm going to reflect Christ.
Well, and right now, because everything seems political and everything seems kind of mashed together, I feel like this is the most divided that I've ever seen our country. I've ever seen churches. I feel like that spirit of division is just everywhere. So what are we supposed to do when it feels like everything is dividing us, but we need to stick to our guns and we want to say, man, I want to be faithful to what God's calling me to, but this might cause division at work. It might cause division in my family. It may cause division with a brother or sister in Christ.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with you that we live in a very divided world. People that once were close are now far away. There's divisions everywhere you look. So I would totally agree. And it's a bit frustrating for me. So I believe that we're called to be different. That's one of the marks of a Christ follower, is that we are different. We're set aside. We're called out from among them, and we're set aside to be separate, right? To be different. So where there is darkness, we are called to be light. Where there is hatred, we are called to be love. Where there is division, we are called to bring unity to that place of division. So we are called by God to be different. There's a passage in Scripture. It's found in Romans 12. Roman winter. Romans chapter 12, right?
How did I know?
I know, and you're paying attention. Romans chapter 12, verses 17 and 18 says, "Never pay back evil with more evil. Do things in such a way that everyone can see that you are honorable. And then you do all that you can to live in peace with everyone. So where there is division, I have to live my life in a way that people see that I am honoring God and that I am honorable. And then I'm doing everything I can to live at peace with them. I'm not living in a way that's creating more conflict. I'm not trying to create more division. I'm trying to bring peace where there is conflict and unity where there is division. So that's my goal. So we have to live in a way that's honorable and honoring to God.
That's good. So, what would you say is maybe a practical tip or tactic when you're dealing with something like that? That you're engaged with somebody, you find out there's a disagreement between you, it turns into a conflict. Like, what do you do in those moments? What are some boundaries or maybe some ways to handle that situation?
Yeah, so love God, love people, and then that little tagline, nothing else really matters, which simply means that if I don't love God with all my heart, mind, soul, and strength, and if I don't love my neighbor as myself, then all the other things that I might do just fall short. They're somewhat worthless if I don't love God and I don't love people. Okay, so we have to love people, even in the midst of conflict or when there's division. Then my goal has to be love, to live at peace with them. Here's the problem: to love another person is, in our culture, is viewed as, oh, if you love me, then you have to condone me. You have to condone everything I do. You have to support everything I do. You have to be a cheerleader of all that I do and support me through all of that, which is not true. That is not what love looks like.
But that's exactly what's happening in our society is I make a bad decision and it's not enough for you to go, well, I love you. It's like, no, you have to not just support, you have to cheer my bad decision. You have to tell me it's the best decision I could have ever made.
Yeah, so if it's not condoning everything that another person does, then what is it? Well, it is living in such a way that everyone sees that I am honorable. It's living in such a way that I am following Jesus. My eyes are fixed on him. I'm trying to reflect him in everything that I do, and I'm consistent in that.
Yeah. We were just talking to our girls actually the other day because we were trying to talk them through a decision and a conflict that was happening with their friends. And I sat down and I told them, like, listen, if you want to be different than most teenage girls your age, learn how to mind your own business. And they were like, I don't know that. And so we talked about gossip and slander and about, just some of the ways that, especially with teens, it's like, oh, they get involved in everybody's business and who likes who. And just going, no. Like, just keep your mouth shut. Like, when someone tells you something, you need to keep that in confidence and not tell your friend who's going to tell a friend.
Right.
And we just said, like, that could cause some real problems because whenever especially somebody who also thinks, I'm a Christ follower, I'm doing the right thing. And it's like when you come in conflict with each other and going, hey, listen, when someone rolls up and they're saying, hey, you'll never believe what so-and-so said. And you're like, oh, no, I'm sorry. I don't do that. And if you go far as to say, I'm sorry, that's gossip, they feel judged and they feel embarrassed and they're like, whoa. And I said, but listen, if you just say, hey, listen, I just don't talk about that stuff. That's drama. I'm not going to be involved in that. So that person will immediately recoil from that. They'll usually people aren't like, oh, you're absolutely right. It's just like, no, who are you to, and they have a bad reaction. But like when you said about being honorable, but later on when that person needs a confidant, later on when that person says, I need to go talk to somebody that I know is going to keep their mouth shut, they're going to remember you.
Yeah, being different is not easy. And it seems like you're being, ostracized or talked about, and you're not part of the group because you're not participating in all those things. And it is absolutely devastating at times to feel like people don't like me and I'm being talked about. But if you are consistent and you're living your life in an honorable way, then God rewards that. And there will be a time when those same people who talked about you will then come and they'll need to talk with you and they'll respect you. And it takes some time, but it does pay off in the end.
And I love the way you talked about that, about being different and being set apart, because that's the definition of being holy is to be set apart, to be different from other people. And that's not always an easy place to be.
Yeah.
So, last 5% on this, what is one tip that you're going to tell me? I'm going to go into one of these conflicts. I'm going to walk into, something where I'm like, man, I know I disagree with this person. I know this person is radically different from me. Maybe they're not a Christ follower, or maybe they are a Christ follower, but we are just on opposite ends of every spectrum imaginable. What is something that you can tell me, like, what's going to get me through that conversation? What's going to keep me in that relationship?
Yeah. So I wish I could say I do this well. I don't. I don't always handle conflict well. And people who disagree. What I try to do is just live my life consistently, to live in a way where they see that I'm not wishy-washy, I'm not jumping all over the place, I'm not judging them just because of them. It's based on the Bible. I'm consistent in the way that I live my life. I think that's important. People can see through posers. They can see through people who say one thing and do something else. And so I try really hard to just be consistent. In those specific instances of conflict where somebody might have a belief that is totally different than mine, what I try to do is follow the example in James where it says, be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. So I want to hear what somebody else is saying. I think, one of the marks of successful people is that ability to be able to understand what's going on in somebody else's life, to listen to their issue before telling them what you believe the issue is. So I'm going to listen. And again, I don't do this perfectly, but try to listen, understand where they're coming from, and then respond to that instead of saying, no, you listen to me. I'm going to be right, and this is what I believe. It doesn't always go well. But if you say, look, I just want to understand where you're coming from. Why did you make that decision? Why are you living this particular way? What's going on? Then when I understand that, I can respond to it with that consistency of my life that I've already established. And they may not agree with me, but hopefully they respect me.
That's good. I've also had a pastor friend of mine that I, love and respect and cherish. It's, I feel honored by his presence. I heard him say one time that basically, he said, what other people view as political, it might be a spiritual issue for me.
Yeah. That was a wise man. I think I heard that too, that, man, I can't get wrapped up in all the political things. I just have to get wrapped up in everything that Jesus is wrapped up in. And if other people view it as political, that's their issue.
Well, I think that's going to be life-giving to people to be able to address that. And I think what you're talking about too, about understanding first. And I've been in those conversations where, somebody says something and I don't agree with it. And I'm just like, tell me more about that. Tell me more about it. And like, you just dig deep down. And it's funny because they just assume that because you haven't rebutted them that you agree with them. You know, and they're like, and they're like, right? And I'm like, no. And they're like, what do you mean? And it's like, and it's funny because if you just keep asking questions, they'll finally ask you, well, what do you think? And to be invited into that conversation is a whole different conversation than you going, you're wrong, let me tell you why.
Right. Yeah. So it's all about loving them. But loving them doesn't mean that I agree with them.
Here on the 167, we love to tell people stories and tell what God's doing in their life. So we're going to do a 7-minute story with my friend Mike Ward. Tell everybody hi.
Hi there.
And Mike's going to share his testimony and do your 7-minute stories. You get 7 minutes on the clock. So here we go. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Go.
Cut. I guess I would start just by talking about, kind of how I grew up. And I grew up in a small town called Augusta. It's near Wichita, about 8,000 people. And fairly rural, but also close enough to Wichita where we had,
You had some access.
Yeah, right. And one of the things that I noticed from an early age was there was kind of a couple of things going on as far as church is concerned. Is you had people who went every Sunday and then didn't really live like it there, but they were always there and they were pretty good people in the community. And so you kind of start to say, oh, this guy's got it figured out. And the other thing you also noticed a lot was Dad stayed at home and mom drug the kids to church. And so you saw that a lot. So I didn't think much of it at the time because we were kind of spotty with some of our attendance. But those things probably had more of an impact on me than I thought. Because really as soon as I could, basically age 18, I fell away. Went to college at Pittsburgh State, played football there. That entire environment is not conducive to keeping my faith. Plus, I had very little, if any, roots. Now, I did get baptized at 18 because my mom was afraid of me going to college, rightfully so.
You want that insurance baptism.
Yeah, yes. And so, but I was sincere in it, but I did it more for her. And so that'll come up later in the story. And then fast forward a few years, met my wife in college. She was in ROTC. I was playing football. We both graduated, moved up to the city, got married, started a family, and basically was emulating kind of what I had seen, which was specifically, let's go to church on Sunday, and then let's live life normally, go out every Friday, every Saturday night, just live it in. As long as I was at church and kind of getting right with the man, hey, I felt pretty good about that. But there was kind of a point where, and during that, the second time, and so Nicole had not been baptized before, so I got baptized with her because she didn't want to do it alone right after we got married. So first was for my mom, second was for Nicole, to be honest. And then kind of the major curveball of our life showed up. We had a 2-year-old, McKenna. She's now 12. And Nicole gets the call that she's getting deployed. So she had been in the Army for 6 years. Nothing had ever happened. We kind of dodged a few. But this time, she was going. And we just couldn't get out of it. Nor did she want to. She wanted to serve her country. She wasn't there to dodge those. So it was something she was excited but very scared about. I think I was just fully terrified. I didn't really have any excitement about it whatsoever. And so she was gone for 13 and a half months. And during that time, I just was just a wreck, just now probably on the surface, like had a business, I'm juggling, I'm getting a lot of pats on the back. Oh, look at Mike. He's really stepping up his game and doing, Mr. Mom, and he's, juggling his career, and there's all these good things happening. But, in the end, internally, I was just in complete turmoil, probably drinking too much, still doing my job, but I was just, I'm just running 90 miles an hour all the time, no break. And so you just get worn down. And basically at some point in there, it was actually August, I think, of 2011, where I just kind of ran out of gas. And I remember Rick gave one of the calls that he gives, and I just raised my hand. I'm like, I'm just done. This obviously isn't working. My way is completely messing everything up. And from that point, I had fire, but then I had no mind renewal, right? I was just going on Sunday. So it didn't take very long just to kind of have that fire kind of dwindle out. And so after that, I basically went through a period, and Nicole and I's marriage, it was probably like a lot of people's, probably in the standard American marriage, it was probably fine. We fought a little bit, we got along a lot, had a kid, we were planning things. Things were fine, right? But nothing like they are today. And so what ended up happening was about 5 years ago, you had given a message called Stay Connected to the Vine. And that to me was right what I needed to hear when I needed to hear it. But also what I liked about it is it gave instructions, like if you're excited, because there have been multiple Sundays I'm like, man, I'm excited. And then by Monday, I'm half as excited. By Tuesday, I'm a third of that. Wednesday, it's 5%. Thursday, it's, here we go, regular. But this is like, here's what you need to do. You need to be in something daily. Here's 10 podcasts you can check out. Here's 3 videos. Here's 2 documentaries, whatever it was. Here's 4 books. And so we went home, and I just took all those notes. We went home, and Nicole and I divvied up the podcast to see what we liked. And from then on, it just felt like that fire never really died. It just really started going, and I was renewing my mind, and things were happening, and our marriage was improving. And it was just refreshing just to have that going on. So that was really where things started. And then I would say there's another stage of it, which is about 2 years ago. I felt, I don't know how to say it. I still felt like I had one foot in the world and one foot in church. And it felt like I was being hypocritical, and it felt lukewarm. And so the scripture that really convicted me was that Jesus wants us either hot or cold. He doesn't want us lukewarm. If we're lukewarm, he'll spit us out of his mouth. And like, I just blew my mind that Jesus would rather have us be cold than hot. You'd think, in the world's way of thinking, that the closer I can get to hot, the better. No, you're a danger. I think Todd White says it very well. If you have the knowledge, you're lukewarm because you have the knowledge of God, yet you do nothing with it. You become a danger to yourself and everything around you. And so that, to me, was like, all right, gloves are coming off. It's time. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. If I'm not, I'm not. I'm going to do this. And so whatever's in that Bible, I basically did the research, said, this is truth. I'm going to do everything, right? Whether it's tongues, whether it's laying on of hands, whatever it is. If it's socially awkward, I don't care. If it tells me to do it in here, I'm going to do it. And so that's, to me, where just another level of freedom and seeing things around me just kind of supernaturally change and work, whether it's marriage or work relationships or, finally developing real friendships for a change. So that's kind of a abbreviated view of, kind of birth to now. But I think I wanted to talk about those areas and kind of highlight kind of milestones and what led me to where I'm at right now.
Well, it's been amazing to see your transformation, and you are now like what I always refer to as somebody who like walks around the church and deals in like Bible study thumb drives. Like, it looks like you're dealing drugs in the hallway. It's been fantastic to watch you bring other men along with you in the journey. So I've been really proud of you, and thanks for sharing your story.
Thanks, Lucas. Appreciate you.
If you enjoyed this episode of the 167, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, get notified, leave a 5-star rating and a positive review. Tell all your friends to listen as well. Make sure you go over to newlifegardener.com and check out all that we have to offer as a church, and check out our messages online as well. Thanks for listening.